It was built by Lima in 1926, and it was built to power the Crescent Limited between Atlanta and Montgomery. And the 290 was, you know, it's rapidly coming up on its 100th birthday. But it was the premier passenger locomotive for the Atlanta and West Point Railroad, and its sister, the 190, was the Crescent power for the Western Railway of Alabama. They were exactly the same. They were both built by Lima. It is stoker fired. It's a big engine. It has, probably double the power of 750. The funny thing is, for whatever reason, the ANWP, like, the tractive effort was put on the side of the cab in numbers, and most people put the entire tractive effort of the engine in numbers, like 26.2 for 750. Well, the ANWP didn't do that. They put half the number on one side and half on the other, because you only had half the power on one side and then half on the other. So it's about two 750s. It's probably around 2,000 horsepower in its speed curve, and it was actually, the driver size was increased to 74 inches by the ANWP because it is a hybrid. In the United States, they had the United States Railroad Administration during World War II, and they developed these standard locomotives. And the Pacifics were either lights or heavies, and the lights they had a smaller boiler, 69 to 73 inch drivers, and they ran at, I want to say, 190 horse boiler pressure, and then the heavies were a much larger boiler, and they had 79 inch drivers. Well, 290 was built with 73 inch drivers, but a USRA heavy. So there was more, that's leggier. It's got a longer wheelbase than a standard USRA light, but it's a USRA heavy Pacific on light drivers, basically. And then they increased, because they had the extra space, they increased the tire size and made them 74 inches instead of 73. And the engine is really, really fast. But, I've heard stories of it doing over 90. It's a very fine representation of a USRA locomotive. It's very elegant looking as far as American steam is concerned. It's what people think in this country. It's what people think steam engines should look like.
And was how did the 290 come to be preserved?
Again, our group started kind of as an offshoot from Save the 290 organization, which that was Atlanta Constitution editor Leo Aikman. He wanted to have the locomotive saved because it was kind of like, it was Atlanta. It was Atlanta and West Point Railroad locomotive. It ran the premier passenger train out of Atlanta, and he was, he formed a 290 club to get the NWP to save the engine, and there was good folks at the ANWP as well, and they were willing, and they actually donated the locomotive to the city of Atlanta, and it remained as property of the city of Atlanta until 1976, when it was finally formally given to the Atlanta chapter of NRHS, National Railway Historical Society, and moved from Lakewood Fairground to the museum at Duluth, Georgia. So,
how long was the locomotive operating in excursion service?
Very, very short period of time. It went into service, I want to say, in 1988, and then was out of service by November of 93. It was run on the New Georgia Railroad. It had always been a real vision of some of the Atlanta chapter folks over the years to see it operate again, because it was just a very pretty locomotive. It was what American people think steam locomotives should look like. You have to do a 5-year at that time, and even now, you have to do a 5-year stay-bolt inspection on the flexible stay bolts on the firebox. And it came back needing what we call in the United States at that time called a cap job. And it needed a cap job and needed to have its drivers turned. And so we proceeded with that work, got it off its drivers, sent them to a shop, had them turned, we're proceeding through the cap job. And that summer, that fall was destined at that point, because Carl Jensen with Norfolk Southern had said, he was impressed by 290's ability to handle his trip that it did handle, and he was interested in leasing it, particularly to let it go to New Orleans, Louisiana, because 611 and 1218 and so many of the other engines can't go across Lake Pontchartrain. The bridge across Lake Pontchartrain, they were too heavy, and 4501 at that point was out of service. So 290 probably would have handled some excursions out of New Orleans to like Hattiesburg, but they canceled the program that fall, and so that was it for 290. And at that time, at the exact time that happened too, is when the federal law here in the United States changed to where inspections of the locomotives had changed, the intervals changed, and the actual everything involved had to be changed under the Federal Register of the U.S. law. And so they kind of tinkered with it, for years. But at this point, we're ready to put it back together, and it's not perfect. It didn't come back from being running in perfect shape. It needs major running gear work. Its shoes and wedges are completely worn out, those are the bearing surfaces that go against the driving boxes. I'm still not satisfied with the trim of the locomotive, because it was involved in a grade crossing accident when it was in service. And I'm not 100% certain that the center casting for the front pilot trucks on it, or the front wheels is completely square, because it came to us with a left front burned up hub, the Babbitt on the left front leading axle. Unfortunately for 290, we don't have anywhere we could run it. It's a big engine. It would need a mainline, a significant railroad infrastructure to run on, because it is so big. It probably needs at this point over $1 million worth of work when you go to think about doing all that you have to do to certify one for the United States. And again, it's a situation where for us, it's a business decision. We just need to get it back together so it looks like it did in the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, and get it on display, and so that people can enjoy it. And we want to try to pair it up with some of our heavyweight cars. We even have a Crescent Limited 1920s era sleeping car that would have probably been behind 290 on more than one occasion. And we really would like to get, for a period, we would like to get 290 together with some period cars for an exhibit about the Crescent, which is Atlanta's last passenger train.